Hello, everybody. It is Sam, NFTstatistics, with your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. A lot to talk about today. We're going to focus on Blur. Why? Because when the community gets $250 million of liquidity dropped into their wallets, you talk about it. So that's what our focus is going to be all the way from this market overview. Now, if you look at the quick response in terms of volumes, you really did not see a huge uptick in volumes on the back of the airdrop right away. I showed this chart yesterday. Those pink bars are the previous huge airdrops, ENS, Lux, ApeCoin. And you can see that over the next week or two, you did see a pickup in volume. I'd expect to see some of that here too. Haven't seen it quite yet though. Now, in terms of market share, ironically, OpenSea actually had more market share yesterday in terms of ETH volumes. I think the big story was in floor prices, huge pickup in floor prices. The large cap PFP index up about 4.5%. The strength was really in some of the collections that have been a little bit weaker recently. So Moonbirds, CloneX, Doodles. Now, what this chart looks at is how much each of these projects was down over the prior 38 days. NFTs had really been down for this period going into the airdrop. You can see that, three of the ones that were down the most, Doodles, CloneX, Moonbirds, were the ones that rose the most over the past day. Other ones, Gutter Cats and Cool Cats, really did not get that benefit. Mid-cap index up a ton as well, up over 10% over just the past day. And the strength was pretty widespread, but a lot concentrated in A Kid Called Beast, On-Chain Monkey, Renga, Chimpers, Genuine Undead, Sappy Seals, all those projects up 20% or more. Just looking at these charts, A Kid Called Beast continues to rip. On-Chain Monkey obviously announced that they were going to be putting their NFTs onto Ordinals, gave them a big boost. They've also recently announced a bit of a reward system around having a PFP be an on-chain monkey, so that project now has a floor above 2 ETH. In terms of art projects, again, this focus is still all about brain drops, looking at all the art blocks, brain drops, and a few others. Renders Game, yesterday's drop, we talked about it at the top of the volume, Squiggles top there as well. But really, I think the focus is on the brain drops right now. Now you can see here, and I've highlighted Podgins, Genesis by Claire Silver, and Brain Loops by Gene Kogan. Why are those on fire? And they are completely on fire. I will show you those charts. The reason is that if you own those three, that gives you an allow list for new projects. And I think that with Life in West America already hitting a floor of 7 ETH, 8 ETH, people are saying, wow, I want to get this access to future brain drops projects. Just looking at those three, those Genesis projects that give you that access, Podgins, Parabolic, Claire Silver, Parabolic at 14 ETH, 15 ETH floor, versus 5 ETH just a couple weeks ago. And then Brain Loops by Gene Kogan, probably the least expensive way to get access, but it's 2 ETH now versus 0.5 a few weeks ago. Now let's dive deep into the Blur airdrop. Based on the current 80-cent price, and I actually think it's probably higher when you hear this, there has been $254 million of liquidity dropped to NFT people. So that's just a lot of dollars, a lot of ETH in the hands of people who like to trade NFTs. $2.4 billion market cap. That compares to Looks Rare and X2Y2, which are around 200 to 300 million. So something like 9x as big as the other exchanges. Now, if you look at the Blur market, the Blur airdrop, and compare that to other projects, just based on the floor prices, the Blur airdrop had more US dollar or more money sent to the DJing community than the entire market cap of Chromie Squiggles, Azukis, CloneX, Moonbirds, Pudgy Penguins, Doodles. So really pretty tremendous how much money kind of came through this. Just to dig a little bit more into the structure, more than 50% is going to go to the community over time. A fair bit will go to investors as well as contributors, which I assume is the team, as well as advisors. Now, what was released yesterday was just 12% of the total supply. Okay, so there's only 12% in circulation. Now, what you can see here is for contributors, investors, as well as advisors, there's a 6-month cliff where basically those individuals cannot sell their Blur until after that 6-month period. So right now, it's really just the people who were airdropped who are selling. Just going over this again, just 12%. There is a cliff, and then more tokens over time will be given to the community, and that will, that's why it's only 12% as opposed to the 51% total. It's because over time they want to be able to continue to reward the community, continue to incentivize people to put those bids in and to list on Blur, buy NFTs on Blur, the whole 9 yards. In terms of breaking down the airdrop, it looks like 62% of people got less than 1,000 Blur. I'm personally in that bucket. I don't trade that much. I'm not much of a degen, so I basically got nothing. But you did have a fair number of people who got 10,000 or more. I asked my followers, on Twitter, did you get more or less than you expected? And I'd say the vast majority of people were surprised to the upside. People who are literally getting tens of thousands of dollars sent to their wallet. One of the downsides yesterday was that gas fees went through the absolute roof. You can see here that there was an hour period where gas, just to do a transaction, the cost was $170 of gas, 0.1 ETH gas. Trades completely stopped during that period. There were only 382 trades during that hour. But interestingly, the average cost of those NFT trades was 0.01 ETH. So people were paying 10x the price of the ETH just in gas over that hour. Not pretty. Hate to see it, but that's kind of what happens on the blockchain. In terms of how much has been claimed, we've already seen 89% claimed over the course of the past, call it 20 hours. So the amount being claimed incrementally has slowed down. Really, kind of people who are involved here are involved and they were getting theirs. In terms of the top claimers, I looked, it's always fun to whale watch. I think there were 2 that got 3 million Blur or more, but a whole handful of wallets that got over 1 million. We'll look into what it took to get that much Blur in a second. One name that I recognize here was Machi Big Brother. Congrats to him, something like 1.6 million Blur. He was number 6 in terms of people who have claimed thus far. Now, I wanted to dig a little bit into what did it take to get 3 million Blur airdrop to you. And this is the amount of ETH spent and sold by the top 4 wallets. You can see that number 1 wallet there, spent probably about $20 million on NFTs and sold about, something like $19-20 million of NFTs. But that was the amount of flipping that had to go on. You can see all these players both bought and sold a ton in order to get it. In terms of total NFTs traded, 4,000 was what the top person did in terms of buying and selling. A lot of these wallets were connected. So there really was a ton of airdrop farming, a ton of flipping. If you look at like the wallets of the top holders, tons of Pudgy Penguins, this guy owned a ton of Art Gobblers. I thought this was kind of interesting. I think this was the number 4 wallet, had a negative 226 realized P&L in Art Gobblers, obviously compared to making, 1.5 million Blur. That's not really all that bad of a price to pay, but interesting to dig around in that. A lot of this data has been taken from a Dune dashboard from Panda Jackson 42. Go follow him. He has great dashboards and a really great way to learn more about the airdrop. One other thing I wanted to mention, and I tweeted about this today, was that Blur also, during the airdrop, I believe, lowered their minimum royalty on new projects to 0.5%. Just to give a little bit of background here, Blur has basically started with optional royalties, so basically 0% for most trades. Then over time, they raised that to a 0.5% minimum. Recently, there were a lot of contracts that were blocking them, and they found their backdoor through Seaport so that they could allow blocked contracts to trade on Blur as well. But they said that they were going to enforce royalties on the projects that they did that for. So Kid Called Beast, VV Checks, sewer passes, all were tradable on Blur over the past couple of weeks, but royalties were enforced. Now, what I've kind of discovered just through playing around is that they stopped doing that, and I believe it was yesterday that happened. Now, if you look at the past week of volume, you'll understand why they did this. These are the top 10 projects in terms of volume, and what you can see is there are only 2 of these projects. The red bar is OpenSea volume, the blue bar is Blur. So the vast majority of big projects are on Blur. The only 2 projects were those that had enforced royalties on Blur. So a Kid Called Beast as well as Checks, and both of those had higher volume on OpenSea. Now, those 2 were also the 2 that paid out the most royalties. You can see both Checks and a Kid Called Beast were the ones who were still earning royalties because the vast majority of their share was on OpenSea. What I imagine happened here, and I could be wrong, I have not spoken to the team, I don't know, but what I imagine happened here is that the team said, why would we enforce royalties only on new projects as opposed to old ones? We're not getting the market share there. Who knows what happened, but that's one possible explanation. You can see here, I just grabbed a trade of a Kid Called Beast. And what you can see is that only 0.01 ETH was sent to a Kid Called Beast royalty wallet. So that's half of 1%, which is their minimum royalty rate. Story number 3, Vince Van Dough and 6529 launch a meme card. 6529 here says that the best memes are not bound by time, space, medium, or technology. This image that Vince Van Dough picked was drawn from the Texas Revolution in 1800, which was drawn from something thousands of years before that in a language I can't read, but still will try. in Vincent Van Dough's tweet, he said that crypto is under heavy attack from scammers, from media, from government, and this image felt timely. Again, it's a ledger with the star and the word "come and take it." When I say it's modeled after the Texas Revolution, you can see this image where basically said the same thing, and "come and take it." And if you go back even further to thousands of years ago, Molon Labe is where it was originally derived, where that basically means "come and take them." And it's a reference to when one warrior said he was going to come attack someone and take his weapons, and the other guy said, "Sure, come and take it." So that's kind of the origin of this image. The floor right now for it is 0.24 ETH. If we were to go over all the details of it, there were 1420 supply, both airdropped as well as on the allow list. The allow list price, as with every meme card, is 0.06529, and the current price is 0.24 ETH. So one of the less expensive, I think it's fourth lowest in terms of price right now, but still a 3 to 4x for people who got in. So can't complain about that. Now, in terms of how the meme card project is doing, basically the market cap went up 3 to 4x in the first few weeks of the year. Then in the next month, it gave back about half of that. And we've since really leveled off a little bit. You can see the market cap chart here nearing about 40,000, and the price to own the entire set, all of the meme cards right now, is 65 to 70 ETH. A lot of that's from a little bit of a gain. A lot of the value is concentrated in the first 10. And the Nakamoto card, I think, had a few trades at higher prices, which drives a lot of the recent value. Last thing to talk about is a few notable sales. The first is that a LeBron unique 1 of 1 on Sorare sold for 44.9 ETH. Now, I think that this one has more provenance than utility in the game. The reason I say that, LeBron probably doesn't have quite as many years ahead, but as this was a 1 of 1 that will never be repeated. So as the leading point scorer in all time, having his 1 of 1, I'm sure is quite the flex. It was the third highest Sorare card sold in the NBA, or on NBA players. You had Giannis, who had his card for 114 ETH, and then Anthony Davis for 49 ETH. Second trade to talk about, this CloneX sold for 87 WETH. It was a bid accepted. CloneX, I think, has really been struggling in terms of floor price. So interesting to see such a high sale price for it. This clone had a lot of different traits that made it unique. I circled the ones I think are the most. The wings are a pretty unique trait. It's got Murakami DNA, or it's a Murakami drip type, but the DNA is an alien. Aliens have always been the most rare DNA and one of, the most premium. If you look at the prior sales, there have been sales. One was at 63 ETH, but that wasn't quite as decked out as this guy. And then one at 125, and one a year ago sold for 250 ETH. So in the absolute heyday of CloneX, you had an alien sell for 250 ETH. So that's that. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about in the art world was this trade by a Ripcache piece called Slime 4, which sold for 17.84 ETH. Why is it called Slime 4? It is part of a series of 8 slime NFTs. And you can see that most of them have sold for under 1 ETH. So this was a very big sale for this collection. We have talked about Ripcache before, though, on the show. He did have a sale of 24 ETH a few weeks ago, one for 14 ETH. So very unique style. A lot of people think that there's a lot coming up for Ripcache over the next year. So exciting to see this sale. That's all for me today. Curious what you thought of the Blur airdrop. Lay your thoughts down below. Put them in the comments. If you like the video, like it. Do subscribe to our channel. And we'll be back tomorrow and every weekday with another show. Have a great day.